A very good morning to all of you. Welcome to today's news analysis. We are doing the Indian Express papers Chandigarh edition. Now you can see the topics have been listed over here, the things that we are going to cover. Over here, climate resilient infra is something that we are deriving from the news. So we'll discuss some additional links outside of the newspaper. Besides, mining in Aravali's was there in the news. So Aravali's and its impact on ecology is something important. With reference to simultaneous polls, there was a statement from the law minister. This topic is again very, very important. With the editorial and opinion part, we are doing the recent changes to the Forest Conservation Act. And there was an article from Minister for Electronics. So semicon report card. So semiconductors, what is the government doing? So the important points have been listed. So these are important things which should be covered. Okay. So let's go on. Rest you can automatically read. Okay. So these, I think these are self-explanatory. Right? CBI to probe sexual assault video. Center will seek trial outside of Manipur. So this is what has been stated, and a lot of coverage is on the same topic, Manipur crisis. Now moving on to the next news. This is with reference to the climate resilient infra that I was speaking about. So the basic thing was that the roads are getting bad because of the monsoons. The roads are getting washed away. So NHAI, the National Highway Authority of India, is considering building concrete roads. So roads made of concrete. Normal roads are made of bitumen. So these do get bad during the monsoons. So the areas which are more vulnerable, there concrete roads will be built. So this is what the article is about. Now here we can think of it from two ways. One is because of monsoons, the concrete roads. So concrete roads and bridges to be built. So that is one theme. Other thing is, why not look at climate resilient infrastructure altogether? Infra is much bigger than just roads and bridges. Right? So we can look at two themes over here. Now I was interested as to know, like with reference to rains, the roads do get bad. So what other alternatives are there? So did some research and came to this link over here. So climate resilient roads. So here some points are mentioned, and particularly the terrain of Bhutan is referred to. So Bhutan, hilly area, prone to floods, landslides, etc. So for this, Bhutan is referred to, and the following has been recommended. So one is engineering and structural measures. I'll zoom in so you can read the points yourself. So engineering and structural measures, which includes slope stabilization, paving of roads with durable materials, proper alignment of roads to avoid vegetative loss, improved drainage, and improve planning of roads. So that is engineering and structural measures. The next approach is bioengineering measures. So this includes planting of grass planting, shrub and tree planting, brush layering, palisades, and fences. So these are some other measures. So what will happen with this grass planting, shrub planting? This will tighten the soil, and it will also hold the water. So it will protect the roads from getting washed away. So these are the measures that are recommended. If you want, I can share the link in the comment section. Now moving on to the next topic. This is climate resilient infrastructure. By the way, with reference to disaster risk reduction and climate resilient infrastructure, we have two international protocols known as, one was Yogo protocol, which ended in 2015. Now we are having Sendai framework. Sendai framework. So this is dealing with this issue of disaster risk reduction, climate resilient infra. So Sendai framework. Now let us look at climate resilient infrastructure. We should have it prepared from mains point of view, GS3. Okay, so it is, here it is. So yeah, so we get this entire points on climate resilient infrastructure. So broadly, there 4-5 points are there. So one is integrate climate change concerns in infrastructure design, construction, and maintenance practices. Second is improved access to climate information and enhance technical and institutional capacity. So basically, whatever infra we have, whatever resources we have, now we are having more data, we know more about climate vulnerabilities. So improve this data so that we can do the needful things. Needful measures can be taken, capacity building can be done. Then facilitate an environment to mainstream climate change concerns in planning and approval processes. So any project has to come up, keep in mind the environment and the mainstream processes. We already have actually environment impact assessment, EIA, and something bigger is also there, that is social impact assessment, SIA, which keeps in mind the impact the project will have on the environment as well as society. Anything that affects society also, environment also affects society. So EIA is a subset of SIA. Then adopt and promote innovative financial mechanisms. So without funding, things cannot happen. So green bonds, etc. So innovative financial mechanisms. Okay. So this is it. Moving on. Modi and Z had spoke, and they focused on the need to stabilize relations. Fine, India and China border issues are going on, so need to stabilize relations. So page 2 also same thing is mentioned, nothing much over here, just this over this point. Then with reference to India and China, there were Indian athletes from the state of Arunachal Pradesh who were to go to China to participate in Wushu martial arts. So in China, there is World University Games going on, in which one of the sport is Wushu martial arts. Now, if you're wondering what is Wushu, Wushu is basically Kung Fu. Right, so Kung Fu. So this is the Wushu sport, Chinese term for martial arts, Wushu or Kung Fu. So they were to go over there, Arunachal. So the people from Arunachal actually, so they were not given stamped visa. Normally the visas that we get, they are stamped visas. So instead of this, they gave them stapled visas. So stapled visas were given. Why? Because Chinese say that Arunachal is part of the Chinese territory. It's occupied by India. So they are basically Chinese. So they do not give them stamped visa, but they give stapled visa. And naturally, because of this, this is not liked by India. India decided that we will not go altogether. Next, this seems to be important for GS3, internal security. So on Pakistan TV show, Shehbaz Sharif, the Prime Minister, so his aide, the person close to him, his aide, admits that drones are dropping drugs in Punjab. Drones, high-tech drones are being used to drop drugs in Punjab. So this is obviously internal security. And this is coming up from the person at the top. So official confirmation. Okay. Now, when we say drones are being used for giving out drugs, we can also say drones can be used for deploying weapons to contraband agencies in the country. And drones can also be used to put counterfeit currency into India. So all these things can also happen. So counterfeit currency to destabilize India's economy. So drones are not just restricted to drugs, but weapons and counterfeit currency can also be transferred towards India. So this is a matter of concern. Now for this, I was hoping to get material from the PIB, did not find actually, maybe I did not put so much time, but logical things would be, we need to improve border patrolling so that we can intercept and take down the drones or shoot the drones. In this regard, we were considering a comprehensive integrated border management system. So this is a border management approach which involves a mix of troops on ground, use of high-end technology, sensors, etc., to see if any encroachment is going on or not. So technology plus troops combined together, CIBM, Comprehensive Integrated Border Management System. 8,000 Vande Bharat coaches to be made as railways planned fleet overhaul, right? So I think it is much needed. So 8,000. Now Vande Bharat is specified as a semi-high speed train. So semi-high speed train is equivalent of 160 kilometers per hour. So this is the speed. So with Shatabdis, it mentions, the speed 100, 105, 110, 120 max. So with Vande Bharat, it is 160 kilometers per hour. This is the city news. City news, my main focus is to cover the urban issues. So Chandigarh being an urban, considered as part of the smart city project. So we have some updates about what all things smart city will encompass. So 13 works under smart city project are yet to be completed, Lok Sabha is told. Okay, so what all is there? So number of initiatives, and two are very important. So it is about convergence of various urban schemes for urbanization. So one is Amrut and other is Swachh Bharat Mission. And the projects that are mentioned is upgradation of sewage treatment plant, 24/7 water supply, augmentation of public transport system, and lastly, rejuvenation of Sector 17. So rejuvenation of some public hotspots or something like that. So these are the areas that are mentioned. So these are the things that are covered into the smart city. And the main scheme that is mentioned is Amrut and Swachh Bharat Mission. Fine. Amrut basically deals with overall infrastructure in urban India. So this is the Amrut scheme overall. Okay. Now with water supply also, there is the scheme known as Jal Jeevan Mission. Right. So Jal Jeevan Mission, but that is mainly for rural India. It says that all households will be provided with potable drinking water, piped water connection will be provided. So let's scroll further now. This is an advertisement actually from Uttarakhand government. So what I was thinking was, for prelims, you are asked the schemes, the government's initiatives. So Uttarakhand PCS, whosoever is, if they're preparing, so you can refer to this, you can know about the various schemes. Here it is mainly about connectivity. So here you get all that information, and respective states, wherever you are, you should focus on the government advertisements. It is having a lot of information which is of relevance for your exam. Okay. Next, work from home scams exposed, UT police nabs. Okay. Here the underlying theme is cyber crimes. The frauds that are taking place, what is the government doing? So these are things that we need to look into. Now with reference to cyber crimes, one question on cyber security policy as it is was asked not in 2013 actually, after this. So then types of cyber crimes that are there and associate with, plus a tail question was asked. So types of cyber crimes. So this is the main thing. Then some initiative of the government that can also be asked. For example, Cyber Dome project in Kerala. Okay. Now let me tell you what happened over here. And then we will discuss what are the measures from the PIP, what steps the government has taken. Okay. So here what was happening was, you must have come across this ads like there is some SMS or something that comes which says you will get work from home facility. but you have to make certain investment. Some investment has to be made. So whosoever is the victim. Yes. So investment is drawn, it's a fraud scheme, your money is gone. Now in this, it has come to light that even CA's bank officials were also involved. So some of them had their setups, these they were made these companies. These are made by the CAs, of course, and some of the setups were actually in the banks, ICICI and HDFC. All these banks are mentioned. So even the bank employees were part of this scheme. Now let us see what needs to be done. What is the government doing? So in this PIB on cyber crimes, first thing they are saying is that policing is part of under the 7th schedule. It comes under the responsibility of the states. So center is basically coordinating between the states. So central government has taken the following measures. PIB is for the central government. So awareness of cyber crimes, issuance of alerts and advisories, training of law enforcement to deal with the issue of cyber crimes, improving cyber forensic facilities. So these are the things. Besides, National Cyber Crime Reporting Portal has also been developed. The government is operating the Cyber Swachhta Kendra, which is Botnet Cleaning and Malware Analysis Center. Then there is also the CERT, Indian Computer Emergency Response Team, which deals with agencies to deal with the issue of cyber incidents. So here we have to, this is only what center can do, right? Now, the main responsibility of dealing with cybercrimes is police. What is police doing? Now here we can also refer to the IT Act. So that also deals with the issue of cyber crimes. So just scroll further, nothing. In a first, this is about Aravali. In a first, there is a board that is set up to crack down on minings in Aravlis. So this is by the Haryana government. Fine. Now, obviously, what is the board doing, etc. That's what we are concerned is with reference to why is it of matter of concern? Why are Aravlis important? How is mining in Aravali going to affect us? So the concerns. So here I would actually recommend you to read any article, for example, Down to Earth. So this is a very important theme with reference to the denudation of Aravali's, especially because of anthropogenic factors or human factors. So here also they are mentioned. Aravali is broken beyond repair. Dust storms to become more intense. Groundwater and health of residents at risk due to waste dumping. I have listed down the important points actually. Okay. So first of all, this is India, the Aravali's like this. Yes. So it will impact the local climate. With the destruction of the Aravali's, it will impact. It may affect the monsoons also. Secondly, Aravali's have a lot of traditional water paths. So with the destruction of Aravali's, even that will get affected. Groundwater recharge will get affected. Aravali's have a lot of forest. With the destruction of the mountain, the forest also goes. Further, and very important point now, is that Aravali's separate Delhi, Gurgaon, this region over here, from the desert region. So the west of Aravali's is the desert. With the destruction of the Aravali's, what may happen is that we may see desertification over a wider region. The desert may actually expand, which is not good. Further, with the denudation of the Aravali's, obviously desert has dust, so there will be more of dust storms. Presently, Aravali's act as a barrier. So these are the points. Just scroll further. Briefly about the parliament now. Obviously, they are talking about the Manipur opposition. There is a no trust motion that is coming up. Now, in the same time, notwithstanding the no trust motion which is pending, bills after bills are being introduced to the parliament. For example, the latest we heard was Forest Conservation Amendment Bill. Moving on. Here we have a statement of the Foreign Minister Jaishankar. Only the highlighted part is of importance. Rest is all political statements. So here, Mr. Jaishankar, the foreign minister, made a suo motu statement. So suo motu means on his own initiative, he made statement about recent developments in India's foreign policy. So he says, country is emerging as a credible and effective development partner. So we went to US, France, all of them want to collaborate with India on various matters, be it defense, climate change, China, semiconductor. Then PM's visit to UAE and Egypt. Then India was hosting the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It co-chaired the Forum for India-Pacific Islands Cooperation in Papua New Guinea. Right, so these are some of the things that were part of India's foreign policy. Rajya Sabha passes cinematography bill. So to curb it will help curb piracy. Next, we have a statement from Law Minister on simultaneous polls. So simultaneous polls have hurdles, will save public money. Okay. Now I'm not covering as such simultaneous polls, nor this article also mentions, but it's now very easy to get material on simultaneous polls. I have a very comprehensive analysis myself, right? So we can take it up separately. So simultaneous polls, I hope basic you understand. So having simultaneous polls for the Lok Sabha as well as the state legislative assemblies. Right. So there are different cycles for state elections and Lok Sabha elections. So the proposed idea is that we can have elections every 2.5 years. So half of the states with the Lok Sabha and others can be done separately. So there can be 2 cycles of elections. So that is the proposal. Okay. Now here, from the constitution point of view, the law minister has mentioned the following articles need to be amended. So these are Article 83 and Article 172. This is basically the duration of the houses of the parliament. So 83 is for the Lok Sabha. Article 172 is for the state legislative assembly, which is also known as the Vidhan Sabha. So it tells us that the duration of the house is 5 years, and so much time elections will take place, etc. 85 and 174 is dealing with dissolution of the house. Dissolution, prorogation, all that is covered under 85 and 174. So 85 for Parliament, Lok Sabha, and 175 for the state legislative assembly. Then 356, this is with reference to the president's rule. Right? If president's rule is, for some reason, there is no majority in the states, then what happens? Do we conduct the election again, or we wait for the next cycle? So there are certain questions that needs to be considered. And I'll add one more point. What happens if there is a no confidence motion like this and the government collapses? If actually the government collapses and we are having simultaneous elections, do we wait for the next cycle? What if nobody is able to take hold of the government? What happens in that regard? So those are certain things which needs to be considered. By the way, the proposal is that in case of no confidence motion, let's say the opposition wins. So obviously opposition has majority, so they should be able to stake claim to the government. If they cannot stake, then the ruling part, whosoever is the ruling party, they will continue to govern. So that's it. Supreme Court extends ED chief's term until September 15 in large public interest. Okay. Scope for 1.25 crore more beneficiaries under National Food Security Act, says Minister for Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution. Now here, obviously, you know which ministry is concerned with the implementation of the NFSA. It's not Ministry of Agriculture, it is the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution. So you can see the important things I have listed over here. So already we know that under NFSA, first of all, NFSA provides for National Food Security Act. It provides for grains, food grains, initially at subsidy at 3 rupees rice per kg, wheat rupees 2 per kg, nutri cereals rupees 1 per kg. So it is at a very, very subsidized rates at public distribution centers or public distribution system. Now it has been made free. Only given the pandemic and the associated condition, it has been kept free for the time being. So the grains are provided under the National Food Security Act. And since it is an act, it is it's by law, the state has to do it, the government has to do it. And over here, the government provides subsidy, the states are required to implement it. Now here, according to the census, 75% of rural population and 50% of urban population are supposed to be beneficiaries of the National Food Security Act. So this is obviously the latest census we have, the 2011 census. So with reference to the 2011 census. So therefore we have at the moment 80.11 crore. So the minister is saying 1.24 crore can be added. So more people can be added to this scheme. Fine. So this is the National Food Security Act. Now, National Food Security Act is merely a law. To implement this law, there are two schemes. So one is Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana. It's a big scheme. Under this, there is one component of providing grains at subsidized rate. So Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, in which every household gets 5 kg of grain. And not every. The beneficiary, 75%, 50% urban, they get 5 kg of grain. There is another Pradhan Mantri Antyodaya Anna Yojana, which is for destitutes. So in that case, 35 kg per household is there. Moving on to the editorial and the opinion section. So I am doing 2 articles only. So one is Missing the Woods about Food Conservation Act, and the other is our Semicon report card. R means the government's Semicon, semiconductor report card. Then the ones I'm not doing is Understanding Award Wapsi. So recently parliamentary committee, one of the parliamentary committee said that whosoever we give awards, they should give an right undertaking that they will not return back the award. So I'm not doing this. So we'll see, we have one article on same topic about WAPSI. This is also an Avoid WAPSI, writer's choice. Then, yeah, so this is it. And Forest Conservation Act, we have 2 articles, Forest and National Security, and this one. Ayushman Bharat, briefly, I will cover the things that are mentioned. So 3 now. Missing the Woods, let's cover this. So recently, the government brought in a bill to amend the Forest Conservation Act. The Forest Conservation Act was passed in 1980 with the idea of conserving the forest or protecting the forest. So it provides protection to all lands which are classified as forest in the government records. That implies that lands which are forest but not in the government records, that can be cleared. So subsequently, there was a Govardhan case in the Supreme Court where it said that it is not just government records, but any land which is a forest will come under the ambit of the Forest Conservation Act. So dictionary meaning of forest will be used, not merely the government records. So what we perceive as forest will be forest. So this means that ambit of forest was widened. It was government records plus land which was not part of the government records. So Govardhan case deals with this. And why do I say this? It may be important for your prelims. Now, with this Govardhan case, it became difficult for the government to issue, to claim land. The government does need land for various purposes. More and more of land is needed and it is scarce in amount. So the easiest way is to clear the forest. But with this, Govardhan case and Forest Conservation Act, it became very difficult to avail land for infrastructure purposes, etc. Okay. Now, with the forest conservation, the amendment that has been made, it is saying that in border areas, uh, it may not be required that the government seeks clearance under the Forest Conservation Act. So they can just clear the forest without seeking clearance from the for the uh, Forest Conservation Act. The clearance is not required. They can easily take the land because border means national security. For that, we need roads, we need cantonments, we need airports, number of things are. For that we need infrastructure, we need land for that. Plus sometimes we need clear land so that we can track the enemy. Forest actually provides shelter to the enemies or terrorists, whosoever. So clearance of land is required for that purpose. And border areas, except for desert, most of our border areas will be densely forested. Okay, so that is the main argument of the government. Now, making a case for the concerns associated with the amendment. So first of all, there is a concern that this amendment, the amendment of making it easier for clearing land under Forest Conservation Act, will affect 28% of the forest land. So 28% of all the forest that is there is in the border areas. So this will make it easy to clear 28% of the forest land. So it is a blow to the ecology, the ecosystems at the same time. Then, talking from the climate change and global warming mitigation, forests are an important carbon sink. Forest absorbs the CO2 from the atmosphere, so they act as carbon sinks. So according to the intended national determined contributions, INDC, India has committed that 1/3 of its geographical area will be under forest, and it will create 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon sink by 2030. So some facts for you. So this has to be done. Now with this amendment, this will naturally be compromised. Okay, so this was about the Forest Conservation Act. Now coming to the government's semicon report card. So semicon means semiconductors. So what is the government doing? So first of all, Prime Minister has given his vision that he wants India to be a $1 trillion digital economy. And for digital, we need semiconductors. Now, 1 trillion digital economy means 20% of GDP. Our target for the economy is that we will be $5 trillion economy. Right? So 1 trillion becomes 20% of the GDP. So great deal of weightage is given to the semiconductor sector. Now, the government has come up with India Semiconductor Mission. And for this, $10 billion has been approved. $10 billion for India Semiconductor Mission. Right, so the report card is actually about the India Semiconductor Mission. So this is the main scheme for promoting semiconductor manufacturing in the country. So one is the overall outlook for the digital economy and other is the scheme. Now, we also need workforce. We need people who are trained in semiconductor design, semiconductor manufacturing, all those things. So for this, curriculum for VLSI, something to do with electronics, VLSI curriculum has been developed. And India at the present moment, 20% boasts of 20% of semiconductor design talent. Then under one of the initiatives, Future Design, all part of ISM, Future Design, this is how it is written, Future Design. And this is workforce one is under Future Skill. So future design, 30 design startups are there, plus 25 or more, 24 more are going to be coming up. So 30 design startups are there. Besides, the government is working on international semiconductor alliances. So India may not have materials, resources for making semiconductors. We need that. So international semiconductor alliances. We are looking at getting entering into the USA's alliance for semiconductors, which is known as Chip for Alliance. So recently, during Modi's visit to US, we were looking at becoming a part of one of these alliances. Likewise, European Union also is working on an international semiconductor alliance. So global groupings, etc., for semiconductors. Then, when we talk about semiconductor, we're talking about technology. So we need to have open source platforms for sharing of innovation, etc. So open source, we have launched Digital India RISCV program. RISCV program. I don't know the full form. Okay. Then, besides this, we are trying to drop private sector and FDI in the semiconductor manufacturing. So some of the companies like Micron, a world major in semiconductor memory space, has announced its investment in Gujarat. Right? So private sector and FDI in semiconductors. Then semiconductor research. So that is also required. So for this, we have set up a Global India Semiconductor Research Center. Okay, so these are the initiatives that the government has done in the recent times. I think you should better prepare a note on this thing. It's important. So first of all, why do we need that? So that I'm not discussed. Why do we need it? But obviously we are depending on more of semiconductors is about protecting the economy, creating jobs. Plus it is also about national security because most of it is coming from China. So it's national security. Now, what is the government doing? So then you can list down these initiatives. Plus, you should also have concerns or risks. Now, moving on. Just visiting this article very briefly. This is again on Forest Conservation Act, the amendment. So it is saying with the amendment where 28% of the borders are going to get, the overall forest is or border area is going to get affected. So easy clearance of forest means human displacement. There are tribal communities who live in the forest. They will get affected. And it may also lead to heightened internal security risk. One good example is Naxalism, where they talk about Jal, Jungle, Jeevan. That the forests are being taken away, our resources are being taken away, we are going to go into poverty. That is one, Naxalites are using it for their propaganda. So here with reference to concern, we can add this internal security risk and human displacement. Hospital for the patients. This is about the issues with the Ayushman Bharat. Not much we get, just some points now. So first of all, Ayushman Bharat. You should know Ayushman Bharat. Ayushman Bharat is basically a flagship scheme of the government for the healthcare sector. It provides for secondary and tertiary healthcare. So that is the main focus. Later, primary sector was also added. So secondary and tertiary deals with hospitalization. And here, with those who have Ayushman Bharat cards, so they have this health in cashless hospitalization they can get. So that is very much required in our country. So cashless, I think you must be well aware of cashless hospitalization. Okay. So here, some issues are mentioned. So one they're saying is that overall claim settlements do not take time. So they have done some observations in Safdarjung Hospital, a central government hospital. It is on 21 days, which is not unduly high. But what they observed was there was lack of active interest. And Safdarjung is a government hospital, by the way. So lack of active interest. So they're noticing that private, if there is a private insurance, they are taking it up promptly, but they are not encouraging the Ayushman Bharat. And those who are registering also, they are also, uh, it is taking time. So with settlements or documentations, they are not proactively helping. So these are certain concerns. So they should look at incentivizing doctors also, because doctors do have a financial incentive when they make a operation or whatever. So with private, they are more keen to do it, not with the Ayushman Bharat. So they need to look at the incentive structure for the doctors and for Arogya Mitra. So those who facilitate. So for them, the incentive is linked to registering patients into Ayushman Bharat, but not on final settlements. That is, after everything, the money is given into the accounts of the bank, accounts of the hospital or the patient. So that is not part of the incentive structure. So many a times the documentation, etc., goes wrong, or there are delays. So this gets affected. Okay, so this is it. Now we move to the international section. Very briefly, we just need to know the headings now. Whatever of IR was important has already been covered in the front page, or not here. It's not very important. Russia refuses to speak at UN meet over attacks on Ukraine's Odessa port. So remember this, Odessa port is on the Black Sea, and it was supposed to provide grains supply to the world. So this was attacked. So they are silent on this. And here they have gotten support of China and Brazil. Now tell me, does it not concern India when it affects China? It does. Right? So China and Russia are getting closer. Putin promises that African leaders will get free grains, right? So Africa will be supported, and whatever grains are required, they'll be provided. Niger is going to have a coup. So Niger army extends support for coup to avoid bloodbath. So army only is doing it. So okay. Now here all you need to know is where is Niger located. Niger is West Africa, and as I told you yesterday also, you should know the neighboring countries also. These are all in news, and the way UPSC may they don't show the images these days. So the way they may ask you is arrange the following countries in clockwise or anti-clockwise order. So most likely they are in east-west direct. No, clockwise and anti-clockwise only. They are going to ask. Now we come to the economy section. So there are two things that you can there are three things actually. One is economic census, one is PLI, and other is ECB. PLI, I'll briefly explain what is the PLI also. Okay. So 7th economic census, parliamentary panel flags delay in results. Parliamentary panel on finances. So they have called up Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation on why the 7th economic census is getting delayed. Now, what does it tell us? The economic census is released by the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. And we have 7th, this will be the 7th economic census. So that means economic census is not something new. We have already had 6. We are waiting for the 7th. And actually, these people are working on the 8th economic census also. Yes, so this is the document on economic census and what all it covers. So from here we can understand. So basically, it provides us about data about the economic activities. It tells us about non-farm and farm sector. It tells us about the health of the households, their consumption, their expenditures, disposable income, activities of the industry. It tells us at a very micro level, from villages to ward level, it tells us about the economic activities. So it is not like other economic data that the government has. This is much more comprehensive and at a much micro level. And this, naturally, this is required because it provides the policymakers good deal of data taking corrective measures. So this was about the economic census. Next is European Central Bank hikes rates for ninth time to combat inflation. So with whole of European Union, I can't tell you, but UK was 10% inflation. UK is not part of European Union, but it is part of Europe nevertheless. So inflation is high in European Union, inflation is high in US. So developed economy is suffering because of this. So to reduce the supply of money, the ECB has hiked interest rates. So there are concerns about high inflation, recession fuels concerns about recessions. So these are certain concerns. Okay. Last article. Center to consider PLI scheme for chemicals and petrochem industry. Right? So chemicals and petrochem industry will come under the PLI scheme, or they're considering. Now, why are we looking at chemicals and petrochem industry? Isn't it a polluting industry? And today we're talking about climate change and everything. So why are we talking about this? So the finance minister, the statement that has come from the government is that these sectors can promote green growth. There are a lot of areas where sustainable practices can be incorporated. They can help sustain sustainability, reduce carbon emission, general pollution, and groundwater. So they can help with this. For instance, we can work on national green hydrogen mission. So help us moving towards an alternative fuel in the form of hydrogen. Hydrogen may come from the petrochemicals, not just water. It can come from petrochemicals also. So there also it can help. So it can help move us towards green, sustainable future. Now let us look at the functioning of the PLI scheme. So it is very simple. Government, first of all, tells us that there is a production linked incentive scheme under which whosoever are interested, they have to apply. So private industry, private sector registers with the government under the PLI scheme. The government approves which all companies will get that benefit. So whosoever is registered, they get the benefit. So it means that not all in the sector get subsidy, only a few will get subsidy. Okay. And it is not just like for startups, it can be any company. Big companies can also come from outside. They can do business with business with India, and but they have to register with the government. Okay, so they register, they become beneficiaries of PLI. Now, obviously, the private sector manufactures whatever is covered under the PLI and sells it to the end consumer. So based on the selling, the government knows that so much production was done, and on that, the subsidy is given to the private sector. So this is the production linked incentive scheme. Now, as the name goes, it is not like private sector may keep producing and they will get subsidy on that. No, it is on the sale. So the private sector is incentivized to only produce that much which is demanded, for which there is demand in the market. So fertilizer subsidy is one good example which is production linked actually, where private sector keeps producing and the government keeps giving subsidy. So this is a different from that. It's on sales, and on sales the government gives subsidy to the private sector, upfront subsidy. Now what is good, what is bad? So one is that government can prioritize by the PLI those sectors which is of concern. So it can promote sunrise sectors, emerging sectors like toys, chemicals, hydrogen, semiconductors. Second point to be noted is not all get subsidy. Right? Those who register, they only get subsidy, but that also means it is not restricted to MSMEs. Big companies can also come and get subsidies from here. Then this subsidy does not distort prices. Private sector gives on the cost plus profit that they want to have. It is not distorting profit in any way. Whatever subsidy is given, government is giving at the back end. So it is not distorting the prices. So fundamentals of the market remain intact. Secondly, PLI incentivizes private sector to do business in India. So it draws investments within the country. and so that they can register with the PLI. Last, global coal consumption in 2022 was all-time high. So this report, this is all the world data over here, and we are getting this from the International Energy Agency. And we should know more about this, right? So please visit their website and the important publications by that, reports issued by them. Now, the reason was basically the Ukraine war. So that was one of the reasons why coal-based, fuel-based, they have been moving towards this. Otherwise, Europe was using natural gas coming supplied from Russia, but now because of the war, they have to depend on coal.